Hello and welcome to another Gwent video on channel Duello. In this video, I'll be talking about the top cards to craft in Gwent game. If you're familiar with digital collectible card games, there is usually a crafting system to help players obtain the cards they need instead of hoping to get them from boosters or kegs. They are called kegs in Gwent. However, crafting materials are usually scarce, especially if you didn't spend considerable amount of playing the game yet, or in other words, grinding the game. So you need to be careful in crafting choices. You don't want to waste your resources on mediocre or less than desirable cards. This video will hopefully help you out with those decisions. Before listing the top cards, I'd like to address that this list is definitely subject to change, because in Gwent, this game is frequently getting updated. We see buffs and nerfs to individual cards on a monthly basis. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're just insignificant changes, but they are changes and they impact the power of cards. Also, some leader abilities change over time, and expansion sets are released periodically. That's why the title of the video, you're gonna see a September 2020 date, and this list features post-Master Mirror expansion. So what I'm planning to do is continuously revise the list and reshoot similar videos in the future after each new expansion arrives, hopefully. Okay, let's begin. I'm going to be selecting 5 legendary, 3 epic, and 3 rare cards from each of the 6 factions in this game, and also the neutrals. I won't be talking about the commons at all, because they are easy to obtain, and I won't recommend anyone to spend scraps on them. After opening several kegs, you're gonna obtain most of the commons. But for rare bronzes, they are not as easy to obtain as the others, so you may need to spend some scraps. That's why I included rare cards in this list. About my selection criteria, I mainly chose the cards that are being used more frequently than the others, so it's really simple. If you craft them, you won't regret, because that card is pretty much guaranteed to be included in a competitive deck. Even if you're not playing to play competitively, these cards will help you develop your game and the strength of your, let's say, beginner decks. And by the way, this video could also help you with selecting the cards that come out of the kegs. One of the things that I really like about this game is we get to choose a rare or above card from a pool of 3. When I was a beginner level player in this game, I was struggling with my choices, because I wasn't sure if I was picking the best card available out of those 3 cards. Also, make sure to check our website teamduello.com, which will be provided in the link below. We will be uploading the text version of this content both in Turkish and English soon, so that you don't need to go through this entire video to find what you're looking for. You can just check our website and see the listing. Let's start with monsters. First, bronzes. Rare bronze cards. Endraga Larva is the obvious choice here. Why? With 5 provisions, you can put 2 Thrive engines on the board, and they are not really easy to get destroyed. Opponent usually spends multiple sources to try to destroy them, and they get bigger every time you play another unit because of the Thrive mechanic. So it's really a good deal. And if you are playing monsters, you should craft those 2 immediately. You don't need to wait for them to, come out of the kegs, because these 2 larvas will help you out tremendously. So definitely you should craft both of them. My second choice is Wild Hunt Bruiser. This card is a new card from the Master Mirror expansion. He is an alternative to Drowner, because it gives you the option to move the opponent units. Other than that, if you have Frost on board, he will deal 2 damage, and he is a Wild Hunt unit. That's why we see Wild Hunt Bruiser in almost every monster deck, at least. A single Bruiser would be enough. There will be times that you know you're gonna need a 4 provision card, and Bruxa can help you with that cause. Why? I mean, she is a Thrive unit, and you can sometimes bleed the units with Bruxa's ability, but the important thing is here, Thrive. She is a vampire if you're playing a vampire deck, so there are many upsides to this card. Definitely a great selection for 4 provisions. So those are my 3 selections. Epic cards for monsters. Goliath is my first choice because with 8 provisions you slam 10 points on the board, and the downside is if your opponent destroys Goliath, they can summon the highest unit from their deck on the opposite row. So in order to prevent that, you should save Goliath maybe as one of the last cards in that turn. But I mean, sometimes the opponent may hesitate to remove Goliath from the board. Why? Because they summon the highest unit. What does that mean? They cannot use deploy ability. For instance, the Scoia'tael opponent destroys Goliath, and then their Great Oak comes into play without using the amazing deploy ability. So the drawback can turn to an advantage at several times. Moreover, he has Death Wish, which means he can trigger the monster scenario, which is Haunt. My second epic recommendation is Striga. Striga is a really great value and tempo card. If you are careful with dominance, if you have dominance, she will damage an opponent unit by 4, and as you see, with 7 provisions you can get value up to 9 points, and if you're destroying that unit, especially an engine like Scoia'tael or a similar one, this could be a game-changing play. My third epic selection, I have 2 recommendations for you. They are similar in nature, the Beast and the Empyrean Phantom. Both of those guys are engines. They boost themselves. The Beast can go up to insane amounts of points if unchecked. Empyrean Phantom grows only by 1 for each turn, but Empyrean Phantom has an additional ability, which is Order Melee, damage an enemy unit by 3. So if you're not sure the Phantom will stick on the board, you can use the Order ability and get on with your game. So it's a low risk card. I would recommend at least crafting from one of these 2 selections. So if you're playing monsters, you're gonna need an engine like this on the board. What are my legendary card recommendations from monsters? Oberon is my first choice. You can see Oberon in many monsters decks. There is a reason for that, because with Oberon, especially the 2nd and 3rd form of this evolving card, you can put 2 units on the board with 1 card. It's really a good idea to divide your power into 2 cards, because I mean, a single powerful card can be removed by 1 card, and it's more difficult to remove 2 cards. So that's really an easy assumption there. And Oberon Conqueror can not summon, but play a Bronze Wild unit, so that you can use the deploy abilities of these units. What are those units? Well, before Master Mirror expansion, we only had 4 Bronze Wild Hunt units. They were okay, not so great. But with Master Mirror, we had 4 more, so we have a pool of 8 Wild Hunt units, and the newer Wild Hunt units are definitely better than the previous ones. I mean, you have Move option, Purify option, Frost option, and if you're playing Devotion, a 7 power unit option. It's actually 8 power, because since that is a Wild Hunt unit, it's going to be boosted by 1. If you have a Thrive engine on the board like Larvas, when you play these 2 units, you'll get Thrive boost twice. So there are a lot of upsides to Oberon. Definitely a must craft. And by the way, with evolving cards, you know, in Gwent store, They are being sold as a starting pack or something like that, so you can get them for $5, I guess. You know, if you're lacking these cards, they will really make your decks better. I would recommend actually buying all of them if you have the budget to do so. So keep that in mind. My second recommendation for legendaries is Ygern. Ygern is a classic monster card, a point slam card, but you must play it early in the round to get benefit from the armor. I mean, as it says, gain armor equal to the number of cards in your hand. So if you're playing Ygern, you know, as the last third card or something like that, you know, Ygern will die to a couple of damage. So, but if you're playing on red coin, you can use this to catch up your opponent as the last card you play. And I mean, assume Ygern is destroyed, you always have the Ygern's cousin Azrael to eat him up from the graveyard. And Azrael is involved in the starting deck, so you don't need to craft Azrael. So that's a bonus. We don't see Ygern in every monster's deck, but I mean, he's a really good card. And if you're a beginner, go ahead and craft Ygern and play it with Azrael. My third recommendation is Hound. Hound is a great fit for Overwhelming Hunger leader ability because the theme is Consume and Death Wish, and you need to have several Death Wish units to trigger Hound, so that Hound can summon those 3 creatures on the board. So you'll get a lot of value and points from Hound if it doesn't get destroyed, obviously. But other than Overwhelming Hunger, we see Hound being used in different decks as well. So that's why I included Hound in this list. But be careful, because I mean, if you want to get the full power of Hound, you should, you know, craft cards like Miruna or Deathlaf, and they are used in only one single deck. So you can delay crafting Hound for a while if you're not planning to use those cards. But again, you can play Hound with less expensive cards like Night Wraith and Noon Wraith. They are bronze cards and have Death Wish ability on them. So you may not regret crafting Hound early in your game. Fourth selection is Naglfar. Naglfar is a pretty good tutor card. You look at 2 random gold cards from your deck, you play one and place the other on top. So that could really be a good strategy to win the game. Suppose you're on second round, you use Naglfar, you get one of the golden cards in your deck and play it, and then you're guaranteed to draw the other gold card in the final round. And that's the best scenario, obviously, but you know, things always don't go that way. Still, Naglfar is a great card, and plus it has Wild Hunt tag on it, so you can tutor it with Gales. My final choice is somewhat lackluster. Cave Troll is a standard defender. Why is he in this list? Because I mean, I couldn't find a great fifth option. I mean, there are better cards, obviously, than Cave Troll, but they are restricted to only one deck. But you can use Cave Troll in multiple decks, so he's kind of flexible. He can protect cards like Keltulus, Oriana, and other engines. So I would recommend crafting Cave Troll if you're a beginner level player. And that concludes the Monsters faction. Moving on to Nilfgaard. With bronzes, I'll recommend 2 soldiers and an aristocrat. Artfane Crossbowman and Artfane Tortoise are really good soldier cards. Since they are soldiers, they have synergy with soldier interactions. I mean, with Crossbowman, whenever you play a soldier, you can ping the opponent's units. Artfane Tortoise has a drawback, but with Nilfgaard units, some power slam cards. So Artfane fills that purpose. And it's also a proactive card. And Nilfgaard struggles to play proactive cards because most of the cards are reactive. And finally, Van Moorlam Hunter is a great flexible card. With only 4 provisions, you get the option to lock a unit or give an enemy unit bleeding. Most of the time you're gonna go with luck anyway. But don't forget that he is an aristocrat and can trigger Masquerade Ball. So if you don't have these cards, I would recommend spending scraps. Definitely worth it. My first epic selection is Van Moorleham's Cupbearer. Cupbearer is similar to Hunter, but he can do more. If you deploy him on melee, he can poison a unit. If you deploy on range, he can purify a unit, including yours and the opponent's, for example, defender unit. Plus, he has Assimilate. So for only 7 provisions, he can do a lot of things. Definitely a must-craft. Second epic choice, Roderick of Duntain. That's a spy unit. You play it on opponent's row, but you get to look at 2 random gold cards from your deck, then play one of them. Especially if you're playing this later in the game, there will be fewer gold cards and the RNG factor will go down. And most of the times you're guaranteed to draw the card you're looking for. Plus, he's an aristocrat and can trigger Masquerade Ball. Plus, he has great synergy with Coup de Grace cards because he's a spy and you can play him twice with using Coup de Grace. Hefty Helge is my final recommendation. You may not see Hefty Helge in tier 1 or tier 2 decks, but it is a great card. Especially if you're a beginner in Nilfgaard, you should craft Hefty Helge and add a couple of tactic cards. With each tactic you play, you get 1 charge and all the charges are equal to 2 damages. Plus, Hefty Helge has shield. He is, I'd say it is hard to remove, not he is. Definitely a nightmare for the opponents. And you may see opponent playing Heatwave to remove Hefty Helge. Hefty Helge is that strong. Legendary gold cards. In my opinion, the best card right now in Nilfgaard is Brethens. Why? Because Brethens can give you a lot of options. First, with deployability. Create and play a bronze disloyal Nilfgaard unit. There are only 3 units that fit into this criteria. So there is no RNG involved. You get what you need. I mean, if you need to copy a unit, you play the Duchess Informant. If you need to damage 2 units by 3, you play the Mage Infiltrator, and so on. Other than that, he has Assimilate, and since you're playing cards not included in your deck, you're getting immediate Assimilate value. And if you're playing a spy and then copying another opponent's units, you're getting another Assimilate point, and later in the round you'll keep getting Assimilate value if you're playing cards from out of your deck. And also great with Masquerade Ball because you're spawning agents, and Brethens will boost himself by 1. So this is a great value card. Despite getting nerfs, still a great crafting selection. Usurper is my second choice, another great and no-brainer crafting choice. Usurper will give you immediate 12 value with his 2nd or 3rd form. It's going to play spies on the opponent's side and you can immediately call them back. But there are many synergies involved with Usurper Officer, for example with Thirsty Dame. Since you're playing spies over there, due to spy tag, Thirsty Dame will get boosted. Impera Enforcer, you're playing spies, so Impera Enforcer will get more charges. Usurper is a soldier, so Crossbowman will trigger and other soldier interactions. And finally, the 3rd form of Usurper Emperor is an aristocrat, so he will trigger Masquerade Ball, one of the Masquerade Ball's chapters. And if you keep playing spying operatives, Usurper Emperor will boost himself by 1 as well. So, I mean, as you see, this card is really powerful. Another powerful Nilfgaard legendary, which is Vincent van Moorlehem. He's kind of Terminator of Nilfgaard. Why? Because when he gets deployed, destroys an enemy unit with status no matter how much the power is. There is no ceiling for this card as long as the opponent's unit has status on it. And there are many cards with status on it, so it won't be difficult to find a target for Vincent. I mean, at worst case scenario, I mean, you can give status with your own cards, so no big deal there. So Vincent is really powerful despite his power being reduced from 5 to 3. Definitely a must craft. Another must craft legendary card is Yennefer's Invocation. Yennefer's Invocation is a great control tool. You can place an enemy unit at the top of your deck and then draw that unit in the next round. And alternatively, you can use Yennefer's Invocation as your last say card, and suppose the opponent played Herald Court, you just disappear Court from the existence, put it on your top of your deck, but there will be no more rounds and you win the game. Another powerful play from Nilfgaard. Fifth option is Masquerade Ball. Masquerade Ball is probably the best scenario in this game because you get to poison the enemy units, and then in addition to that you'll spawn Fangs of the Empires, which are 4 points value, and in 3 turns you can turn the game around with Masquerade Ball. What is the drawback? For beginners, in order to use Masquerade Ball, you need to have other cards as well, so it requires more crafting. That's why you can delay crafting Masquerade Ball for a while. If you're a beginner, I would recommend Ramon instead as your fifth option. Ramon is another fantastic legendary card. Ramon can spawn and play a base copy of Bronze Soldier from your hand and give it 2 armor. And then the next turn you can play that unit as well. So a great value card. And soldiers have synergies between them, so you can benefit from those as well. Again, another crafting that requires no regret. Let's move to Northern Realms. Northern Realms is probably the most powerful faction right now in this game as of September 2020, and you'll see why. Bronze recommendations, bronze rare recommendations. Karak Frigate is really close to gold value. Why? Because if Frigate goes unchecked, Frigate will spawn volunteers next to the ship. I mean, it's an engine that can produce 2 power soldiers. The only requirement is it has to be between 2 soldiers, and you just need to put a soldier on the left side of Frigate, which isn't really difficult if you designed your deck considering the interaction with Frigate. Second recommendation is Radowitz Royal Guards. Any Northern Realms deck that is using a boost theme will have Radowitz Royal Guards. It's an auto-include bronze card. With only 4 provisions, you get a lot of value from him. And third option is Adernian Mauler. Adernian Mauler is not really as good as the other 2, but still a good, reliable, proactive card. And you can line up the opponent's units and then play Falibor. So Mauler has multiple uses if he doesn't get removed or locked or anything like that. Plus he's a soldier. For epics, well, Northern Realms epics are not really that, let's say, astonishing. Visigoth was the best epic card in Northern Realms, but he got nerfed big time. That's why I didn't include Visigoth in this list. Instead, we have Egmont as the first choice. Egmont is one of the patience cards. I mean, if you don't use the order ability, Egmont will boost the unit by its right by 1 every turn. So again, a great fit for boosting theme. Plus, if you need 3 damages, you can use the order ability. So a great value card. You may not see him in every Northern Realms deck, but we shouldn't underestimate him because he provides great value. The only reason people may not be using Egmont is there could be better alternatives with 7 provisions. My second recommendation is Vincent Mace. Vincent Mace isn't popular right now, at the time I'm shooting this video, but still he has great potential. Depending on the meta, I mean, we can see Vincent Mace reappear in decks because, you know, for example, if you're targeting Ygern, Ygern will be reduced to only 1 power, so he can be really powerful. Other than that, if you're playing a Drog deck, which isn't popular right now, but again, things could get changed, Vincent Mace goes great with Drog decks. So if you have extra scraps, you can craft Vincent. He's a solid card. Voimir is again another great fit in Drog decks, but other than that, he could be useful in several decks like Commandos and other decks that uses same copies of a bronze unit. So it's really a good selection. Amphibious Assault is my first gold legendary choice, and it's probably one of the best echo cards in this game. Amphibious Assault could play a Northern Realms unit from your deck with a provision cost of 9 or less, and if it's less than 9, it can get boosted by 1 for each provision below the limit. So 1, you can play 9, 8 or 7 provision gold cards with this card, so it's a tutor card. You can play it twice. Second, you can play a bronze card less than, suppose I mean with 4, 5 or 6 provisions. It will get boosted, and if that card has a interaction with getting boosted, you're gonna use it like that, and it will thin out your deck. So I mean, you can get rid of a, let's say, mediocre card, and then you'll have a higher chance to draw your gold cards. Fantastic card, no doubt about it, and I think every Northern Realms deck has Amphibious Assault in it. Prince Ansei is my second choice. With Shield Wall Leader ability, I mean, that ability is created for this guy because, I mean, you can use Prince Ansei immediately, and if you use one of the leader charges of Shield Wall, Prince Ansei could, I mean, destroy units up to 12 power, so it's an insane tempo play. Other than that, I mean, you can play Prince Ansei with Uprising ability. So he was popular already, but with Shield Wall ability, I mean, this guy became a tier 0 card or something like that. So again, a safe craft, and if you're playing Northern Realms and haven't crafted Prince, what are you waiting for? Viraxis is my third choice, the evolving card for Northern Realms. Viraxis is kind of different from the other evolving cards. Why? If you couldn't set up the board properly, you could be useless. What does it mean? Well, the order ability of Viraxis is resetting an allied Northern Realms unit's order. So you need to have a unit with order ability. So when you play Viraxis, since he has formation, you can use it on the turn he comes out. But I mean, if you couldn't, you know, set up the board, you're not gonna get value from it, and it's different from the other cards. But it's easy to set up the board because there are a lot of good order options. Prince Ansei and Bloody Baron are the obvious choices. Other than those two, War Elephant is great, and you can even play Karak Frigate, not Frigate, but the Marines, those bronze 4 provision cards. Their order ability is not bad at all, so you can use it, use that guy's ability as the worst case scenario. And it's only 11 provisions, which is kind of unfair if you compare it to other evolving cards. So if you're maybe watching this video after a month, maybe Viraxis will get nerfed. We'll see what happens. Bloody Baron is my next choice. It's a great reset tool, and most of the decks have units that go tall, get boosted, so they will reset them back to its original position. And it says reset the power of a unit, not enemy unit, so you can play it on your units. If, for example, you have a Falibor, instead of 7 power, I mean, he got damaged by several sources and reduced to 2. You play Baron and reset him to 7, so again another 11-point play from Bloody Baron. In most of Northern Realms we see him. He is close to an auto-include card. Speaking of Falibor, Falibor himself is one of the best cards in Northern Realms. He was probably the best card, but I mean, with recent additions, he got bumped to what, 4th or 5th spot, I guess. Why is he here? Because he doesn't exactly fit the theme of boosting. He is more suited for control decks. Why? Because he can remove threats and can give you huge tempo boosts. What does he do? He has 7 power, which is really a good value, and deploy damage a enemy unit by 3. So we have 10 there. If you manage to kill that unit, you can hit 2, and then kill again, you can hit 1. So as you see, the 3-2-1 lineup is important. With Falibor, you can get a lot of points and go ahead of your opponent in a round. Those were my 5 legendary selections for Northern Realms, but keep in mind that Northern Realms has a lot of good legendary cards. I couldn't include Queen Adalia or Reinhardt Odo, so those are also great selections. Philippa, depending on the meta, could be great. Right now people aren't using, but you know, after a couple of weeks things could get changed. So keep an eye on those 3 cards as well. Let's move to Scoia'tael faction, elves and dwarves and nature things. The bronze cards. Hamadryad became my first selection here. Well, with Nature's Gift leader ability, you can protect Hamadryad at the turn she comes out. If you play Vitality with a leader ability, she will be 6 power, and it's really not that easy to remove 6 power units. You need Decoction or something like that. So, and if she survives and if you keep on giving vitality boosts, she could become a huge tall unit. Having tall unit isn't really that great every time, but I mean, if you're doing it in the first round, the opponent will have to use one of the cards that he was saving for the last round. So still, it's a good play. That's why he is my #1 choice. Mahakam Volunteers recently got a buff, goes great with Novigradian Justice, that's why he is here. So if you're playing Novigradian Justice, you should play those 2 dwarves along with it, because Novigradian Justice will spawn those 2 dwarves out of your deck, and your deck will be thinned out and you will draw more goals. My final choice is bad. Tempering is not a great card, but I look at the list and saw that most of the good bronzes are commons in Scoia'tael. So with rare bronzes, I mean, Hamadryad and Mahakam Volunteers, maybe that the Dryad Ranger could be, I think she was bronze, but tempering is used more frequently right now. That's why I suggested tempering as the crafting choice, but I mean, if you have limited scraps, don't craft it. Well, here is a card that you should craft if you're playing Scoia'tael, because Danka is in every Scoia'tael deck. Well, forget about the order ability, damage an enemy unit by 3, because the other ability is great. Hand boosting is generally a good thing, and if you compare it to Hawker Smuggler, which was a pretty good unit, Hawker Smuggler had 6 provisions. He was boosting the units in your hand by 1. With only a point addition, with only a point more, Danka can do more, because if she gets moved, she'll keep on boosting the units. I mean, if she gets moot, you won't be able to use the order ability, but that's really not that big of a deal. And if you boost Dunka, she becomes really tough to handle, difficult to get removed because she has Zeal as well. Mustcraft. Treant Boar is my second choice here. If you're playing a Dryad heavy deck, Treant Boar will use its ability at the turn he comes out. And what is that? Deal 2 damage to a unit. And if you manage to keep Treant Boar alive, this will become a great engine, but the opponent will somehow find a way to remove him from the game. So that's an immediate threat for the opponent. That's why he is my second choice for epics. My third choice is controversial, because if you're a beginner and recently started playing Scoia'tael, don't craft Herald Court yet, because Herald is a special card that will benefit from playing specials, which are nature cards in Scoia'tael. But there is another thing. He's also a Syndicate card, so he's a multicolored card. So if you craft Herald, you can use him in Syndicate's crime decks. But again, if you're playing Scoia'tael, if you're not going to use special cards and less unit decks, don't craft Herald yet. Moving on to legendary selections. Right now in every Scoia'tael deck we see Forest Protector, because everyone is playing some sort of special nature cards, and Forest Protector fits into that theme very well. Nature's Rebuke is the best choice. Why? You can play a bronze nature card from your graveyard, so he gives you the option to play that card twice. And if you manage to hit the death blow, Forest Protector will get boosted by 2 because of the Nature's Rebuke ability. So a great tempo card here. Great Oak is another big treant in Scoia'tael. He was the best card in Scoia'tael, but right now Force Protector is being used more often. That's why I moved Great Oak to second spot. Well, if you manage to form a long row, you'll get tremendous value from Great Oak. You can damage an enemy unit by the number of cards to the left of Great Oak, then boost up by the number of cards to the right of Great Oak. So you should set up your board so that you can get big value from the Oak. And he's a great finisher. Novigradian Justice, I just mentioned Mahakam Volunteers. With Novigradian Justice, you can spawn a Cleaver's Muscle and then spawn 2 Volunteers from your deck. So Justice becomes a 13-point card immediately. If you need a lot of points, Justice will serve you well. Fav is a tutor for nature cards in Scoia'tael. Any kind of nature cards, not only bronzes. So you can tutor for Call of the Forest, Isengrim's Council, or that Echo card that I forget the name. So, but I mean, even if you play Nature's Rebuke, you're gonna get a lot of value because Fav is 2 power herself. So with those bronze cards, you'll get a lot of value. I mean, definitely a must craft. I wouldn't say must craft for this choice. Isengrim's Council is being used more often than Call of the Forest. They are both tutor cards. With Call of the Forest, you're getting the card you want. I mean, any kind of card, any kind of unit from your deck. But Isengrim's Council, you look at a random dwarf, dryad, and elf from your deck. So, I mean, at first glance, it doesn't look guaranteed choice. But if you design your deck in a way that, for example, you're playing only 1 elf or 1 dwarf, or I mean fewer number of units, you'll get what you want. I mean, Herald Court decks can use Isengrim's Council, and if you have only 1 dwarf, you can guarantee you're guaranteed to draw your Gort. Or if you want Elias, and Elias is the only elf in your deck, you'll draw him. So the bottom line is, if you're a beginner level player, go ahead and craft Call of the Forest. If you're an advanced player, if you don't have Isengrim's Council could be more useful for you. But I mean, in the long run, you're gonna need both of these cards. They're both great. Skellige, the faction of Vikings and Bloodthirst. Well, Skellige's bronzes are insanely powerful. My first recommendation is Uncrate Raiders. Veteran ability is a new ability in Skellige that came out with Master Mirror set. With veteran ability, in the last round, Uncrate Raiders could become a 6 power unit. Similarly, Tursek Invader has veteran, so she can become a 7 power unit. And if you use those 2 units in the first 2 rounds, they're not that bad either. So they're not cards like, you know, you only use them on the final round. And as you see, I mean, Raiders even has order damage a unit by 2 thing. And if you have Bloodthirst 3, you know, you can use it immediately. They're really, really great cards. And with the release of these maybe 2 cards, Skellige, you know, became a much more powerful faction in my opinion. And the third bronze card is a recently changed card. A rework has been done, and the changes is for the good, because Uncrate Greatsword was a polarized card. I mean, he could win you games, and his power could go really up to 20-30 points. It was, I mean, ridiculous. So finally CD Projekt Red fixed the card, and as you see, we have a ceiling here. So and the card isn't useless, and it's a pretty good card. I would definitely suggest crafting him if you don't have him, and craft both copies. So if you're using Greatsword, you need 2 of them in your deck. Epic cards. My first choice is Herkia. Herkia is a patience card. At the end of your turn, damage a random unit by 1 if you haven't used the order ability, which is split 3 damage randomly. You need to damage units to benefit from Bloodthirst ability and the cards that get boosted from opponent units getting damaged, like Greatsword. So she is an auto-include in most of the Skellige decks. You need to craft her. My second choice is Scoia'tael Drummond. Scoia'tael is a little bit different. You need to play Warriors first of all, and Devotion. If you're not playing Devotion, don't bother playing Scoia'tael, because I mean, it's going to be only 3 power card. But with Veteran, if you're playing Scoia'tael on last round, you'll get a 10-point play from an 8 provision card, plus you can remove an engine from your opponent's board. A great card as well. There are many options for the third selection. I'm going with Gremist. Especially beginner level players will need Gremist. He is a great purifier unit, and if you're playing an alchemy heavy deck, he can use Purify a couple of times. And right now the warrior decks do not use him because he doesn't have warrior tech, but I mean, don't underestimate Gremist. He is still a great card. So if you craft him, you shouldn't regret at all. Moving on to legendary cards, the best legendary card right now in Skellige, in my opinion, is Blood Eagle. Blood Eagle is a 2-tor card. Eagle can damage an opponent unit by 2, then plays a warrior from your deck with a provision cost of 7 or less. But if you meet certain requirements, you can play any warrior deck from your deck, any warrior from your deck instead, and there are really amazing warriors, which you'll see in the next slides. So and it's an echo card. You can play this card twice, and it helps with the consistency of your deck, and you get to draw your goals more often thanks to this card. One of the best cards in Skellige is Herald. He was crazy overpowered when he was first released, and after that he got 3 or 4 nerfs. He still is a must craft. because especially the second or third form of Herald, similar to Oberon, you play 2 cards, but different from Oberon, you get to play the card in your graveyard, so there are no RNG involved in it. You just select the warrior card from your deck and play. On his third form, he will ping the opponent's units if you keep on playing warriors. And a great card, and also opponents will probably remove Herald the next turn because that pinging could be really bothersome for many opponents. Another warrior plus pirate, Morkvark, Heart of Terror. Morkvark has been a great card for a long time. Because of the change in Greatsword, he lost a little bit value, but he is still a great reset card, similar to Baron, and a nightmare for especially Monsters faction, because he can, one-shot Osrael, for example. And but against certain factions, he is a lost cause. If you're playing against Skellige, there will be no boosted units, so you can prefer to draw Invader or Raider instead. Still a great card. Another great warrior card is Heimdall. If Morkvark is a single tall unit removal, boosted removal, then Heimdall is your row punishment. So if the opponent goes wide, you can play Heimdall and damage the entire row, and the damage is based on the number of units in that row. Plus, he is an 8 power card. Again, Heimdall can win you the games or turn the game around for you. My final choice is maybe the best card in Skellige, but right now, you may not include Wild Boar in every deck, because Wild Boar is a ship, not a warrior. But things can get changed. Wild Boar of the Sea is a great mass point tool. If there are a lot of units and if they are damaged, Wild Boar can get huge value for you. If you're playing Dagger, you should include Wild Boar, obviously. Other than that, he is an optional choice. I said he, but it. Ship is an it, not he. Now, Syndicate, the final faction. For Syndicate, as many other players are already mentioning it, Syndicate should be your last choice. As a Gwent player, if you're beginning the game, you should select the faction and concentrate on it, and then select the second faction, third faction, fourth, and you'll develop all the factions one by one. And Syndicate should be your last choice, because Syndicate has coin and bank mechanism, and that requires additional thinking and a little bit more experience. And Syndicate cards are not included in starter deck. That's the main reason, actually. So in order to play Syndicate, you should keep opening Novigrad kegs or other expansion sets, and it will take time to collect all the Syndicate cards. That's why you should focus on Syndicate the last. Syndicate Bronze Rares. Street Urchins is a great spender and profiter both, and Street Urchins are blind eyes, can help you out with Passiflora. Fisstag Trafficker is a poison unit. If you can't complete the poison, you can poison your own unit and gain 3 coins, which is a solid card. Slice Seductress is another pretty good engine card. As long as opponent plays units, Slice Seductress will boost herself by 1, so another threat that needs to be eliminated. And if you don't have these, you should craft them. But at this moment, I should mention something. What is that? Syndicate has 2 sides. First, the classic Syndicate that plays with, managing coins, playing poison, playing your engines and stuff, Passiflora, and so on. And most of the lever abilities fits into that theme. And then on one side, you have Congregate leader ability, and with Congregate, you should play a crime-heavy deck or Swarm deck that are using Firestorm Zealot tokens, and they are really different in nature. So I mean, Syndicate is a unique faction, as you see. I mean, it's like two factions are combined in one. That's why suggesting and recommending cards is kind of difficult, because I mean those three cards are really good. I mean, solid bronze cards, but you cannot use those in Congregate. So I had to make a choice here and selected those three cards for standard Syndicate decks. But you'll see several cards that could go in both type of decks. My first epic card is Soul, the Neverette. If you manage to hoard the required amount of coins, which is 9, if you're playing Hidden Cache, that will be 7. Soul could get out of hand, because he will go immediately up to 7 power, and there's, I mean, 7 is a really good number, because with 6, I mean, you can use Decoction. With 7, there are only a few cards that you can remove Soul with. And after that, it goes to 10, 13, and so on, and could get really, really tall unless you have Baron or, you know, Morkvarg. But I mean, you don't want to use those cards in the first round, so that's why Syndicate players prefer to use Soul in first or second round. And he can single-handedly win you the round. He is that powerful, because I mean, he should be crafted if you're playing classic Syndicate. Lieutenant Von Hurst. That's the card that I'm talking about. That's let's say one of the two cards that I was talking about. You can play Lieutenant in both Congregate Swarm decks and in Hidden Cache decks. So he can go in 2 decks. That's why he is a really important epic card. What does he do? If you have Horde 4, you can keep spawning Firestone Zealots. And again, another must craft if you're planning to use those 2 leader abilities and decks. Let's move on to the other option, which is Adalbertus Kalkstein. Kalkstein isn't an auto-include at all, but I mean, he's a great card. There are times that, you know, you prefer something else over him. He is a blind eye. He can trigger a chapter of Passiflora, and if you have the required amount of coin, he can purify as much as you want. And purify is really valuable in this game. You can purify defenders, purify your poisoned units. That's why he is a great card, and if you craft him, I'm sure there will be times that you will need to put him in your deck. Legendary cards. Jacques could be the, you know, best card in Syndicate right now. Why? Because he's in every deck. They recently buffed him up, and he became a spender in addition to, you know, spawning those tokens. That's why you can use him in standard Syndicate decks, because he's a spender and spawn units. And since he's spawning Firestorm tokens, he is an auto-include in Firestorm Swarm decks. You can even use him in crime decks as well. So he's really powerful and should be crafted immediately if you're planning to play Syndicate. Passiflora is a must craft in standard Syndicate decks, because without Passiflora you don't have the firepower to battle the opposition. And what does Passiflora do? Passiflora can spawn 2 engines, which are Slice Adductors and Passiflora Peaches, plus you get a lot of coins from playing Passiflora. So in the long run, Passiflora is really unstoppable, and people will try to bleed the Passiflora out of you if they're smart enough. Azar Javed is generally used in standard Syndicate decks. However, we can see him being played in some crime decks or swarm decks as well, to protect, you know, important cards like the Fallen Knight. And I would recommend crafting him. I mean, there are usually many occasions that, I mean, you can include Azar in your deck. And why? Because he's a great defender. He isn't the defender himself, but he can spawn 2 defenders, and removing 2 units in 1 turn is really difficult. So you can protect your passive flora from threats like bomb heaver, or protect the other engines before the scarabs are being destroyed. Final choice is Philippa Eilhart. Philippa could be the best card in the set, in the faction, while stealing is a really powerful play. There is a ceiling though. You cannot steal a unit with more than 9 power because the bank cannot contain more than 9 coins. But suppose the opponent has a 9 power unit and you have 9 coins in the bank. You're playing Philippa, which is 3 points. You steal the opponent's unit, so you'll get 9 points from it, and you're gonna play it on your side. I mean, it will switch sides, so another 9 points. So it becomes a 21 point for only 10 provisions. So that will win you games. And it's maybe the most the playing around thing what I'm talking about. I mean, if the opponent is playing against Syndicate, he or she should always play around Philippa. What if my opponent plays Philippa? I mean, should I play this card? I mean, it will always keep your opponents, stressed. I said final, but there is one more selection, which is Flying Redanian. Flying Redanian looks weak if you read the text, but you need to play the Redanian to understand its value. Because, I mean, if you can manage to collect 9 coins, or if you're playing Hidden Cache, 7 points, Flying Redanian will be summoned from your deck, and you will not need to draw that card in the next rounds. As long as you have 9 coins, it will get spawned from your graveyard, and those extra 3 points can win you games. And that concludes our 6 factions. I want to talk about neutral cards as well, because there are some crucial cards that could be included in non-devotion decks. I'm using the term non-devotion and devotion, which is a new thing. Devotion means you cannot use neutral cards. You only need to use cards that are from your faction. And if you do that, there will be some bonuses with some cards. If you decide to include neutral cards, well, they have to be really good, because you're letting go of some of the crucial devotion cards. But as you see, with bronzes, you may need some tech cards. I mean, all those 3 cards are like that. For example, Bomb Heaver destroys an artifact. Squirrel will remove a Echo card or a Masquerade Ball from your opponent's graveyard. In some factions, you may need Purify. For example, Northern Realms doesn't have a proper Purify unit, so Peller could fill that role, but Northern Realms right now prefer to play Devotion. They just take the risk without playing a Purify unit. But I mean, monsters can sometimes use Peller as well. That's why I'm suggesting those 3 bronze rare units. For epics, selections are not really that amazing. Marching Orders is usually used in Nilfgaard decks because it's a tactic card. It plays the lowest unit from your deck. Sometimes Skellige uses to summon Ermion, but usually it's Nilfgaard's choice. And there are really good low-powered units, so Marching Orders is usually used to, create a certain combo. I mean, you can thin out your deck with Arturus Vigo, or play the tactic tutor guy or something like that. So that could be really useful. So that's why if you have scraps and if you're planning to craft epic cards from neutrals, Marching Orders could be your first option. Becker's Rock Slide is used in non-unit Scoia'tael decks currently. I don't think it's a great card, but it's not a bad card at all, because with 8 provisions, you can damage a unit by 8. But, I mean, if you damage a 5 power unit by 8, it's a waste of 3 points. Still, it's a tech card and could be great against some specific cards. One-Eyed Betsy is another tech card. She is good against those one armored patience units, because if the unit has armor, she damages it by 6. Still not so impressive, right? 10 provision, 10 point if it has armor. And if you don't count the armor number in the point, it isn't that great. But if that unit is an engine, it is worth using Betsy. Moving on to legendary choices. Oneiromancy is the obvious choice here. Play any card from your deck, Echo. One of the reasons not to play Devotion. You get to play the card you want twice. But the one condition is you need to draw Oneiromancy in the first 2 rounds. If you draw Oneiromancy in the last round, it loses its value, obviously. But it's worth taking the risk. It's a great card and should be crafted if you're not playing a Devotion deck. Korathi Heatwave, again for non-Devotion decks. If you're playing a control heavy deck, you need to have Korathi Heatwave. Heatwave will banish a unit or an artifact, so instead of maybe adding a bomb healer, you can use Heatwave as a backup. Magic Lamp is the neutral stratagem that I recommend. The alternative is to use Crystal Skull, but Magic Lamp has more uses than Crystal Skull and has 1 more point over Crystal Skull. Crystal Skull is a great fit for Northern Realms in my opinion, and if you're again running an engine heavy deck, it's better suited, but most of the time you're going to go with Magic Lamp. So it doesn't look great to use that amount of scraps for a stratagem, but there will come a time that you will need to craft a stratagem that will suit your needs, because tactical advantage is kinda restricted in its usage and could have some negative sides, such as boosting the unit unnecessarily high and can become a target for other removal spells. But crafting stratagems shouldn't be your first priority at all. So let's say if you feel like you're let's say not beginner level but advanced level player, you should craft one of the stratagems, and Magic Lamp should be your first choice. Ciri Nova, if you're planning to play a Nova deck, which means a deck that will have cards less than 10 or less provisions, so you're not allowed to use any 11, 12 or 13 per provision cards, so that automatically makes your deck worse. But Ciri has resilience, shield and veil, so especially resilience is important. She can carry over the points to the other round, and can make you win 2 rounds because of that. But if you're not planning to use Ciri, don't craft. Triss Telekinesis could be more useful than Ciri actually, because if you play her on range draw, she can create and play a bronze special card from either player's starting deck. Looks like an RNG card, but if you design your deck in a way that RNG does not become an issue for you at all, she will get plenty of value. Assimilate decks like using Triss, and Gord decks use Triss again, but not all the time. Still a great card. You won't regret if you craft her. And that concludes my video. It is a long video. These kinds of videos take long time if you're talking about individual cards and kind of reviewing them, obviously. Thank you for listening. If you're come to this point and endured my less than good English, because English is not my mother language. I cannot speak fluently as the other YouTubers, but I'm trying to be better. And this channel is obviously a Turkish language channel, but I'm trying to upload English language videos as well, especially these kind of these instructional videos. Hopefully you'll like them, and if you like this, please hit the like button. And you can even subscribe to my channel, as I said, because it's not a Turkish only channel. I will keep uploading English videos, just not as often as Turkish ones. But you're gonna see at least 5 or 6 videos per month. I can guarantee that. Okay, thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time in Channel Duello. Bye bye.